please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live. Hey everybody, so it's time for another NHL redraft of the top 10 picks. We have made it all the way up till 2005. Again, we started with a 2000 draft and we've been doing one of these per month where I go back and redraft the top 10 picks of the first round to, from what they were actually made to what they should have been made now with 2020, obviously hindsight looking back on how these players' careers turned out. But this is going to be a fun one, guys. 2005 was a really, really interesting year because of the NHL lockout. This draft actually took place in a hotel. It was supposed to take place in Ottawa, but obviously the lockout ruined that, and it ended up taking place in a hotel in Ottawa. It wasn't the big draft party that they normally are. It ended up happening later. It did not happen in June. It happened later in the summer. It was a really interesting year. And obviously the lockout made a big issue as far as this went. But when it came down to it, the lockout got solved and the teams ended up being able to draft. The draft took place in a hotel. Ottawa was given the 2008 draft as well, so they could actually host a normal draft, not one that was half ruined by a lockout. But the 2000 draft, as you guys will see as this video goes along, was a very deep draft. It just was not picked properly. There were a lot of misses with the real life top 10 picks. But looking, now how these players turned out, this was a very good, a very deep draft. It wasn't 2003 level, but it was a very, very good draft, particularly when it comes to goaltenders. And you're going to find that out as this video goes along. Just astonishingly good for goaltenders. So let's get into it here. Before we start, I do just ask that you please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Those likes really, really help out a lot and are awesome to help the channel to grow. So please, if you would be willing to do that, it would be greatly appreciated. And let's go. Taken number 1 overall in the 2005 NHL draft was Sidney Crosby. I bet most of you watching knew that. Taken center, taken first overall by Pittsburgh. Not just a franchise player, a generational player, one of the greatest players in NHL history. Sidney Crosby, just a remarkable career. 984 games played, 462 goals, 801 assists, 1,263 points, and a plus 175 in his career. And still counting. Obviously, he's still playing for Pittsburgh. He's still the captain of the Penguins. And just remarkable Hall of Fame career for Sidney Crosby. 3-time Stanley Cup champion, MVP, anything, Art Ross winner, anything this guy could possibly have done at the NHL level, he's done. Incredible generational talent. One of the greatest players in NHL history. Clearly the correct choice at number 1 overall. A franchise-saving player for the Pittsburgh Penguins in Sidney Crosby. So that brings us to number 2. I'm obviously not changing that pick. That was very much the proper pick at 1 overall. That brings us to number 2, where selected second overall by the Anaheim Ducks was right wing Bobby Ryan. Now, Bobby Ryan's had a good NHL career, a very good NHL career. 833 games played, 254 goals, 301 assists for 555 career points and a +2 rating. Over 500 career points, over 800 games played. Bobby Ryan's had a pretty darn good career. And, there's nothing to be ashamed of there. He's been a solid player for Anaheim and for Ottawa, and he's played on some good teams, he's played on some not so good teams, but he's always been a solid goal scorer and producer. However, not exactly number 2 overall worthy. Ryan's had a good career, don't get me wrong, but not number 2 overall worthy. Number 2 overall should have been goaltender Carey Price, who originally went number 5 overall to the Montreal Canadiens. Carey Price has started 670 games in his NHL career, winning 348 of them, losing 250, and overtime losses is at 74. A career goals against average of 2.49 and a .917 career save percentage. Carey Price has been one of, if not the best goaltender in the past decade or so in the NHL. I mean, he's been an all-time goaltender, incredibly good. The teams in front of him, particularly recently, haven't exactly been great, but Carey Price is one of the top goaltenders of the modern era in the NHL. Absolutely incredible player, incredible goalie, and should have gone number 2 overall, in my opinion, to the Anaheim Ducks instead of Bobby Ryan. That brings us to pick number 3. Pick number 3 belonged to the Carolina Hurricanes, and with that pick, they selected defenseman Jack Johnson. Now, Jack Johnson has had a solid NHL career. He's been in the league for a long time now. He currently plays for the Penguins. He's still in the league. He's played 937 career games, so he's almost to 1,000 games. He's scored 70 goals, 232 assists for 302 career points and a -114 rating. Now, that plus-minus is not good. He has actually only finished one season in his career with a plus-minus. He's been a minus player every single season except for one throughout his career. However, he's played almost 1,000 games. He's got over 300 career points. He's been in the league for a long time. He still has a job in the league. So he's put together a very solid career. Not exactly number 3 overall worthy, though. If you're drafting a defenseman at number 3 overall, you want a franchise number 1 defenseman, and Jack Johnson isn't that. So who should have gone at number 3 overall? Well, I told you this was going to be a sick draft for goaltenders. Tuukka Rask, goaltender, originally drafted 21 overall by the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2005, has gone on to become one of the best goalies in the entire NHL and might win the Vezina Trophy this season for the Boston Bruins. He got traded to Boston from Toronto, obviously in that very famous deal for Andrew Raycroft. And that was very, very dumb on the Toronto Maple Leafs' part because Tuukka Rask has started 516 career games with earning a record of 291, 158, and 64. A career goals against average of 2.26. That's insane. 2.26. I didn't believe that when I looked up his stats on NHL.com. His career goals against average is 2.26. He's giving up a little, 2.25 goals a game. That's insane. Most are up near 250 or even higher. He's at 2.26 and a .922 career save percentage. Tuukka Rask has the best individual numbers out of any goalie in this draft. Better than Carey Price, better than any of the other goalies I'm going to talk about. Tuukka Rask has the best individual numbers out of any goalie in this draft with that goals against and save percentage. Now, he's, for the most part, had much better teams in front of him throughout his career than some of these other goaltenders have had. So that obviously helps him out immensely. Yeah, insane numbers for Rask, and he should have gone number 3 in my opinion. Number 4 in the real draft, number 4 was left wing Benoit Pouliot, selected 4th overall by the Minnesota Wild. This pick was a miss. This was a miss. Benoit Pouliot did have an NHL career, and a pretty good NHL career, but he was never more than a third liner. He played 625 NHL games, scoring 130 goals, 133 assists for 263 points, and a +25 rating. Solid middle of your lineup, third line depth player. Nothing wrong with that, but not worthy of being a top 5 NHL draft pick. He never lived up to being a top 5 pick. Who should have gone at number 5 to Minnesota? The goalies keep coming. Jonathan Quick. Jonathan Quick was originally drafted 72nd overall by the LA Kings. He spent his entire career with LA. He's still an LA King to this day. He's won 2 Stanley Cups with the Kings, started 636 career games, winning 325 of them, losing 240, and 67 overtime losses, a 2.39 goals against average on his career, and a .913 save percentage. Jonathan Quick has had one hell of an NHL career. And sure, his numbers aren't great this season. They haven't been great the last couple years. Injuries have caught up to him, and the team in front of him has gone from a Stanley Cup contending team in the early and mid 2010s to being one of the downright worst teams in the league now in LA. But that's not really Jonathan Quick's fault. Jonathan Quick is an incredibly good goaltender, has been throughout his career. Carey Price doesn't have any Stanley Cups. Tuukka Rask's only Stanley Cup, he was a backup. It was Tim Thomas that was a starter. Tuukka Rask doesn't have any Stanley Cups as a starter. Jonathan Quick's got 2 Stanley Cups. So, I mean, the incredible goalies keep coming. His individual numbers aren't as good as Rask's, but he's got the 2 Stanley Cups. He's had some incredibly good years with the LA Kings. And quite honestly, the 3 goaltenders that I just have talked about, Carey Price, Tuukka Rask, and Jonathan Quick, that I put at 2, 3, and 4, I think you could order those 3 in any way and make a valid argument. I mean, it's hard to distinguish between them. Tuukka Rask has the really good individual numbers. He's been on some really, really good teams, though, which is obviously very, very helpful in that situation. Carey Price has had some incredibly good seasons. He's also had some very so-so seasons. Jonathan Quick, I think you could say the same thing, has had some incredibly good seasons. He's had some, very good defensive teams in front of him at times. Other times, the teams in front of him have not been as good, like right now when they are not good really at all. Carey Price, again, has had some so-so teams in front of him. It's hard to rank these guys, and that's why I didn't put anyone between them. I put Price 2, Rask 3, Quick 4. And really, you could put them in any order, in my opinion, and have a valid argument. I just went with that order. I think that was, in my opinion, the most correct order. But those 3 have all been outstanding NHL goaltenders in their careers and continue to be outstanding goaltenders in their careers. Next up, number 5. Well, in the original draft, the goaltender, one of the goalies we were just talking about, Carey Price, originally went number 5 to Montreal. We've already talked about his career numbers, outstanding career. Unfortunately for the Canadiens, in this redraft, Carey Price goes off the board at number 2. So he's off the board here and not still available at number 5. That means the Montreal Canadiens should have selected Anze Kopitar, center, who originally went number 11 overall to the LA Kings. Yes, the LA Kings got Jonathan Quick and Anze Kopitar in the same draft. That's obviously huge for them, but neither of those players should have been left on the board for an LA Kings pick. But the Kings obviously did their homework and did a very good job drafting both of those players that would go on to be huge pieces of their Stanley Cup winning teams. Kopitar has played over 1,000 career games with 1,073, scoring 333 goals, 617 career assists, 950 points, and a plus 76 career rating. He is still the best player on the LA Kings right now. He leads the team in points, and while the Kings aren't really good anymore, Kopitar is still the captain, still leading the way, and doing the best that he can at this point to, at least have the Kings playing to the best to their ability. They're a rebuilding team. But Kopitar has had an incredible NHL career, multiple time Stanley Cup champion, really important top line center for the Kings in their glory days when they were winning Stanley Cups and competing for the top spot in the Western Conference. And Kopitar's had an incredible career, over 900 points, over 1,000 games, and it's still going for the great Anze Kopitar. He should have gone number 5 overall, not slipped all the way to 11 for LA to get. That brings us to number 6, and this was a big miss. Gilbert Brule, center, originally taken 6th overall by the Columbus Blue Jackets. Brule only played 299 career NHL games, scoring 43 goals, 52 assists, 95 points, and a minus 39 rating. Never really found his footing in the NHL. Certainly not worthy of being a top 10 draft pick, to say the least. And if you've been watching these redraft videos from 2000 on, Columbus with another miss. That's going to be a pattern that you see. You wonder why Columbus was so bad for so long and why it took them so long to ever become a competitive NHL team and make the playoffs and have a chance to win in the playoffs. It's because they missed a ton of draft picks throughout the 2000s. And it continues in this draft with Gilbert Brule. I think they've had a top 10 pick, I think, in every single redraft video that I've done so far from 2000 to 2005. I think they've had, or at least almost every one, they've had a top 10 pick in, and they've missed on almost all of them. Other than Rick Nash, who was obviously a huge home run, they consistently missed on these top 10 picks over and over and over again, and that really did hurt them long term and shows you why Columbus was such a bad team for such a long time. And another one here with Gilbert Brule. So who should Columbus have taken at number 6 overall? This player is a lot better than most people realize. Paul Stastny, center, like Brule, originally drafted 44th overall by the Colorado Avalanche. I was shocked when I saw Paul Stastny's career numbers. He is so underrated. He is so much better than I think most people realize when you think of Paul Stastny. 945 career games, 250 career goals, 476 career assists already for Stastny for 726 points and a plus 39 rating. I had no idea that Paul Stastny had over 700 career points already in the NHL. I really didn't. He is so much better than I think a lot of people realize. And he's had one hell of an NHL career up to this point, and it's still going. He's a top 6 center for Vegas, still putting up numbers and being a very, very important and effective and, what's the word? Just, I can't think of the word I'm looking for off the top of my head. But he's still a great player for the Vegas Golden Knights, LA Kings. Vegas Golden Knights. I'm everything's spinning in my head now. Stastny's really, really good. Stastny is really, really good, and he's had a heck of a career. He should have gone at number 6. Imagine if Columbus had Paul Stastny at center and Rick Nash on the wing, rather than drafting somebody like Gilbert Brule, who didn't even play 300 NHL games and didn't even have 100 NHL points. I mean, imagine if Columbus had drafted correctly throughout the 2000s. Moving on now to number 7, we have the 7th overall pick belonging to the Chicago Blackhawks, and they selected right wing Jack Skille. Now, Skille has been up and down between the AHL and NHL throughout his career. Never really found a full footing at the NHL level. Played 368 career games. 43 goals, 41 assists for 84 points and a minus 52. This was a big miss of a pick. Chicago could have done so much better. They did not. And Skille has, just kind of floated around the league a little bit and not been a regular in anybody's lineup for the most part. I believe this season he's been playing in Europe. Obviously, that's come to an end with the current global crisis, but Skille was playing in Europe this year. So who should Chicago have taken? Well, they could have had a right wing. They could have had TJ Oshie, who went 24th overall to the St. Louis Blues in 2005. And Oshie has put together an incredible NHL career, playing 803 games so far, still counting, 238 goals, 329 assists, 567 career points for TJ Oshie, and a plus 126 career plus-minus rating. Very responsible defensive player, can play physically if you need him, goes to the net. Really, really great player for the Washington Capitals. Stanley Cup winner with the Washington Capitals. He's just had one hell of a career, and he could have been a Chicago Blackhawk. He could have been in Chicago if they had picked that correctly. And he's been a really, really good. Another guy who I don't think gets as much credit as he should for just how good he is. Over 800 career games played, over 550 career points for TJ Oshie. He is a very, very good player for the Washington Capitals. Moving on now to number 8. The 8th selection belonged to the San Jose Sharks in 2005. And with that pick, they selected Devin Setoguchi, right wing, who went on to play 516 career NHL games, scoring 131 goals, 130 assists, 261 career points, and a minus 11 rating. Now, Setoguchi did show promise in his second NHL season. he had a 30-goal year. He scored 31 goals, and it looked like he was actually going to live up to being a top 10 pick and being the player the Sharks thought he would become. Unfortunately, after his second season, he never reached those goal totals again. He never had a season that good in his career again. He had a couple more 20-goal seasons, never hit 30 again, though. And then after his third 20-goal season, second post-30-goal season, second 20-goal season after his 30-goal season, he never hit 20 again, and it was a gradual downhill slide for Devin Setoguchi. He left San Jose. He went to Minnesota, played there a few years, never really lived up to what he was supposed to be there. Then he bounced around the league a little bit and was and then eventually out of the league. But Setoguchi, promising start, never fully lived up to it, not worthy of being the 8th overall pick in this draft. The 8th overall pick should have been old friend Bobby Ryan, who originally went 2nd overall. I told you, Ryan's has had a good NHL career. Not worthy of being 2nd overall, but definitely worthy of being a top 10 pick. And I think the appropriate spot would have been for Bobby Ryan to go at 8 overall to the San Jose Sharks. And we talked about his numbers: over 250 goals, over 550 career points. He's a little bit behind Oshie in my book. Oshie's got more career points. Oshie's got a better career plus-minus. Oshie, I think, has been a more impactful player particularly since going to Washington. But Ryan's had a really, really good career as well. And, obviously there's a lot to like about Bobby Ryan. I think he should have went at 8th overall. That would have been a good spot for him. So now we are moving on to number 9, and this was a big miss by the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa selected defenseman Brian Lee with the 9th overall pick, and Brian Lee never really found his footing at the NHL level, only playing 209 games, scoring 5 goals, 31 assists for 36 points and a -37 rating. And Brian Lee just never really turned into a good NHL defenseman at all. And it hurts especially bad because the Ottawa Senators could have had who they should have taken at 9 overall, Kris Letang, who originally went 62nd overall to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Still plays for Pittsburgh to this day. Multiple-time Stanley Cup champion, incredible top 4 defenseman for them for over a decade now. One of Pittsburgh's best players on the back end for almost 15 years at this point, at over 10. Just incredibly good career for Kris Letang in Pittsburgh. 808 games played, 127 goals, 410 assists, 537 points, and a +61 rating. Ottawa, you could have had Kris Letang. You could have had a defenseman with over 120 career goals, over 530 career points, and still a plus player, and you took Brian Lee instead. Kris Letang's been an incredible defenseman of this generation in the NHL, and obviously has had a remarkable career in Pittsburgh, and he should have gone at number 9 overall. And that brings us to our final pick here, and this is a sad one. Number 10 was Luc Bourdon, going 10th overall defenseman to the Vancouver Canucks. And this is a very sad situation. Bourdon was limited to just 36 career NHL games, scoring 2 goals, no assists for 2 points, and a +6 rating. And he was killed in a motorcycle accident at age 21 before his NHL career even got started in 2008. And this is very, very sad situation. And actually, he was extremely close friends and roommates in junior with Kris Letang, who we were just talking about. And from what I read, he got a motorcycle and wanted to start riding, and he told Kris Letang about it. And Letang was actually going to get a motorcycle himself, but unfortunately, shortly after getting that motorcycle, Bourdon crashed. It was a head-on collision. He was killed instantly, and that put a very, very sad end to a NHL career that was never really realized. Again, only 36 games played, and Letang actually decided against owning a motorcycle after this tragedy happened. So, rest in peace, certainly, to Luc Bourdon. That was a very, very sad situation. and one that you never ever want to see happen, but he only ended up playing 36 career NHL games in a life and career cut way too short at 21 years old in 2008. So obviously that pick did not go the way Vancouver was hoping, or anybody was ever hoping. Who could Vancouver have had? Well, I told you this was a sick year for goalies again. And we have one more that I want to talk about, Ben Bishop, who originally went 85th overall to the St. Louis Blues that year. Bishop has become one of the top goaltenders in the NHL after a bit of a slow start to his career. He really became the guy in Tampa Bay, and now with Dallas is one of the top goalies currently in the NHL. Bishop has started 397 career games, winning 222 of them, losing 128, and losing in overtime in 36. A 2.32 career goals against average, obviously extremely good, and a 921 career save percentage. And very good numbers from Ben Bishop there. I don't think Bishop is necessarily in that class with Rask and Quick and Price, but he certainly deserved to be a top 10 pick. He's played less games than them because, again, it took his career a little bit longer to take off than those other goalies. He was a bit of a late bloomer, but once he became the starter in Tampa Bay, he really became a top-tier NHL goalie, and now obviously he's in Dallas for the last few years and has been a Vezina candidate in Dallas as a really good goalie for them as well. So Ben Bishop still going strong at the NHL level. Should have been a top 10 pick at number 10, and that is 4 goaltenders I have in the top 10 of the redraft. Carey Price, Tuukka Rask, Jonathan Quick, and Ben Bishop. I told you it was a ridiculously good year for goaltending, and you do not see that very often. 4 elite NHL goaltenders coming out of the same draft class. What a year for goalies in 2005. But as you can see, the original draft picks, a lot of them did not turn out too well. A lot of them were misses, but this was a very deep draft. As you see with the redraft, there are extremely good players being picked in the redraft, and there were some good honorable mentions as well. Mark Stahl, I think, would be right after the top, outside the top 10 here. Keith Yandel, also taken in 2005, just outside the top 10 in my opinion, and James Neal, forward, taken in this year's draft as well in 2005. Those would be probably the next 3 picks in my mind. I would probably go Yandel at 11, Mark Stahl at number 12, and James Neal at number 13. So those are the honorable mentions for this year. But this was a very good draft class, a very deep draft class. Not 2003 good, but very good, particularly for goaltenders, as we talked about all episode. It was a really strong year. So that's 2005, guys. That is my top 10 pick redraft of 2005. Hope you enjoyed it. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.